welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And there's my audience with my co-host David Null, Hawkeye. Thanks for being here.
Hello there again, Robert. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of y'all out there for tuning in to us. We greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And so we thank you for coming tonight. And our story for tonight is the Ermine and something. Ermine and the Hunter.
Yep.
Exactly. So stick around for that. You know what an ermine is? It's like a weasel or a parrot.
I thought it was a person.
So anyway, so what's our subject tonight, Robert?
We are talking about Bonneville. We're talking about Benjamin Louis E. de Bonneville. You ever wonder where the Salt Flats name came from, or the car? Have you ever drove a Bonneville car? Well, here's where the name come from, because he was famous, and he lived a long life. He went through everything. And so he lived for a very long time. So he was born again in the 1700s, 1796. Can you believe that? And, he lived all the way till 1778. He died at the age of 82. And he was
18.
Or 18, sorry. Yeah. 1878. Wow. It's just amazing what not only him, but a lot of these other guys who lived in this era. You came from the 1700s, where they're dressing in colonial hats and garb, and the British were just ousted, and the country was new. And, the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights have been signed up, and America's waving the flag, and we're like, woo, we're free of England, and blah, 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 blah. Well, of course, until we're 1812. And then, George Washington is president, and so forth and so on. And you live all the way till 1878. Through the Civil War, through, the time of Abraham Lincoln, even, and past that, even past Lincoln, seeing more presidents go.
Through the War of 1812, he lived through the Indian Removal Act, and so he made it through all of that. So,
even Custer's last, can you imagine listening, watching the papers going, oh my gosh, Custer was, Custer's last stand and the whole 9 yards. And that was pretty much the end of the Indian Wars, kind of, that was kind of the finish up of it. But, just amazing, that era, that time change. I can't imagine what it would have been like to go through that. I mean, such change, not just a little change, like you and me, for instance, right? When you were growing up, party lines, for your telephone, you had a party line, right? You had either no phone or you had a party line. And then phone on the wall. And then it was eventually cordless phone and the big giant antenna, and now, heck, we got these cell phones and with a computer inside, literally. And that's a small change. When you were born, we had cars, we had jets, we had planes. You could go to an airport. People weren't riding around with horse and buggy yet, were they?
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Here in South Georgia, North Florida, and some of these sharecropper farmers, they were still riding in wagons.
Oh, really? Well, tell me about that.
Well, going into the 60s, traveling with the carnival, we traveled in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia.
Yep.
And we always played small towns. We never played, Macon or, anything
Yep.
like that. The biggest town we ever played was Albany, Georgia.
Okay.
But there were so many people that were still sharecropping in the late 50s and early 60s. And
Yep.
when Robert F. Kennedy took his train ride across America, he was surprised at just how poor the United States really was. And that once you got out of a city, it was horrible. People still had outhouses, and a lot of people still didn't have, they had one spigot in the house, and that was in the kitchen. But
Yep.
if you had to go to the toilet, you had to run the trail to the outhouse. And so in some rural areas they still use outhouses, by the way. But so growing up in that, I'd leave Tampa and we'd come up into South Georgia, and Alabama and all, and it was a completely different, place. We'd go into town. There's a place, Demopolis, in Demopolis, Alabama. We're riding into town and there's all this traffic. We're like, what the hell's going on? And come to find out, there were, I don't know if they were Amish or not, but there was two horse and wagons, taking their stuff to town. And all the cars were, backed up behind it trying to get around them. So, but that was that would have been about 66, 67.
Wow.
And then things started to change.
Yep. Oh,
But
I
it
can
was,
imagine.
it was still, it was still a lot of pioneer and stuff back in the late 50s and early 60s. Well, up through the 50s. But I mean,
Mhm.
I didn't see it until I was older, having been born in 52. So, I was 62, 10 years old. I was old enough to see things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I totally agree with get you on that. And that's the thing is, see, you were right at the tail end of all of that, and that was the thing. It was the tail end of the horse and buggy, because within a few years after that, I'm sure by the 70s, most of them people were driving at least some sort of car.
Yeah,
Right?
they were getting the hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
They were getting cars out of the 40s and 50s in the
Yep.
early 70s.
Yep.
If they could get I saw that someone had a 55 Cadillac for $50.
Wow.
He used
Yeah.
a lot of oil, but $50 for a 55 Cadillac. I tried to buy that thing.
Yeah, but $50 back then was quite a bit of money.
Yeah, it was. And I didn't have it, but I was going to dig it up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I know when I was a kid, things weren't that much either. We could buy a car for $100, $200. Man, you buy a $500 car, you got an expensive car. I remember my
You
parents
got a
going to
fancy
town.
car.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
parents going to town.
you got a Bonneville if you got that kind of money.
Yeah, well, I remember my parents going to town and getting a loan for a car for $500. They literally got a loan from the bank to get a $500 car. And then,
Yep.
now I look at it and go, that's nothing. But of course, used cars, you can buy used car for $2,000. So the same thing is, it's just everything's more money. It really is.
Yep.
It's terrible.
So Bonneville was born in 1798. So that would have made him 80 years old.
96. 96.
96?
1796. Yes. He was 81.
Oh, yeah. Right. But 1886, right?
Yeah, he lived to 1878. He
Yeah.
died at
So
the age of
if you're
82.
78 plus 2 years is 80.
Oh, I'm just going by what it said here. So yeah,
Well, if he died in
he died
78,
on, yep,
so
at
that would have
78.
been 78 years. And if it was he was born 2 years before the start of the, so that would have made him 80 years old.
Or no,
Why?
no,
What
you're
does the
doing your
book
math.
say?
96, that'd be 97, 98, 99, 1800. That's 4 years
Oh,
plus 4 and 78.
oh, so he would have been 82.
Yes, he's 82. So I said 82. Oh yeah, but still, 82 is a long time, man. 82 years old back in those days, it was, you were
That was
ancient, I
that was
suppose.
a big
I
deal.
mean, still, that's a long time. Yeah, you've seen a lot of stuff. So let's see. I got a thing to share.
Yeah, I'll be
Do.
73 this year, and it's like I'm pushing 80. It's like talk about these old men in the old days. I'm a pioneer myself,
Yeah,
of a different
exactly.
age and era, but I am a pioneer myself. So, you know, go on,
Yeah.
brother.
Well, and like I said, he lived so long that we actually got photos of him. So here's a photo of him. And it's kind of amazing. This is Bonneville, and I mean, it's kind of cool to see pictures of a man who lived in born in the 1700s. I mean, it's just amazing, you know. So there he is. So what about this guy? He's born in April 14th, 1796, near Paris. He wasn't even born in the United States. He was born to French revolutionary parents. His godfather was Thomas Paine. Wow. Can you believe that?
Ooh.
Thomas Paine. The family
And for
fled.
those of you who don't know, Thomas Paine wrote a bunch of papers, and he was very prolific in writing letters and such. But anyway, go ahead.
That's right. His family fled from Napoleon and immigrated to New York in 1803. And then what he did? He went to, at the age of 17, he went to West Point. In 1813, and he graduated in just 2 years as a second lieutenant in the light artillery in 1815. Wow. Went to West Point. So he was smart. You don't go to West Point and be a dummy. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So, he, again, another one of these famous guys that we're always talking about that had brains and lived to tell about it. And I think that brings a lot to the story. What did he do with all that? Well, in 1815 to 1831, he served at the frontier outpost in Fort Smith, Arkansas, Fort Gibson in Oklahoma, and a Jefferson barracks in Missouri. He engaged with Native American affairs, and in 1824 and 25, he accompanied Marquis Laflette. I said this earlier, but I can't say it now. Marquis de Laflette during France's farewell tour, acting as his aide and interpreter. So obviously, he could speak French. Inspired by westward
And
expansion,
he could speak and he could speak native.
I bet you he could.
Right.
Inspired by his westward expansion discussions in Missouri, because that was right on the border of the westward bound, he secured a 2-year leave of absence in 1831 to explore and gather intelligence in the Oregon country under the American flag. Well, this led to an expedition from 1832 to 1835. Remember, expeditions back then didn't move very fast because you're moving with wagons and mules and horses and by foot, so it just took a long time. He led an expedition of 110 men starting in May 1832 from Missouri, and this expedition was funded by John Jacob Astor, the American Fur Company that he had, and some military support. Well, he established Fort Bonneville on the Green River in Wyoming in the winter of 1832 and 33, and he explored Idaho via the Snake River. Well, he sent Joe Walker with 50 men south through Utah and Nevada. And in 1833, they crossed what became the California Trail over the Walker Pass, connecting to the Humboldt route. Bonneville himself ventured into eastern Oregon and Washington, crossing the Blue Mountains and reaching the Columbia River by Christmas 1833. And that is quite the march, because nobody was going out there just yet. No Oregon Trail at that point. His campaign laid the groundwork, though, for the future Oregon Trail, in which he improved the mapping of the interior of the West with his party of men, and he provided important intel on the native tribes. Well, again, he probably knew something about surveying, as we talked about last week, being surveyors or map readers or makers. Maybe he was just a map maker. Who knows?
Well, but they had to read a map. So if nothing else, they would update the map. Like, no, that spring is dried up, or we found another spring, or something like that. Or, don't go this way. That shortcut ain't no good. Or, and so they were updating the maps that were already there. Because, remember, by this time, there had only been a few folks that crossed over the Great Divide,
That's right.
And they were just trappers and pioneers, like we've talked about over the weeks. And this guy here, he took a troop of men to kind of clear up. Probably those guys, they probably, like threw rocks out of the way, and they probably made it easier to make the trip, for their wagons.
Well,
so I would say that they helped they literally helped make the trail.
Well, I'm sure they made markers, because you get lost, trim some trees and put some ribbons up or something so that somebody knows where to go. It doesn't take much to make a trail. It's just that you have to do it and find the right direction, because I know I've been out there on my horse trying to make a trail, and literally if you don't know where you're going around in circles, or you're going the wrong way, or you're going way out of your way, and then you go, oh, I was supposed to go left when I should have went right, and all because I went over this log to get around this tree, and then I got sidetracked, and next thing you know, I'm somewhere else.
Yep. That's true.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get back to the mapping. He faced military censure over overstaying his leave. Well, when you're out there in the wilderness, who knows? But he received informal credit for trailblazing among the public. Washington Irving's 1837 account, The Adventures of Captain Bonneville. Well, of course, when you're doing that stuff and somebody writes about you, this is probably how he got famous. He had Western adventures igniting public interest in Western exploration. Irving admitted some embellishments. Through Bonneville's leadership was genuine. His military service and frontier commands from 1835 to 1866. Now, that's a long time to be in the military, but they were fighting a lot of wars. He permanently was reinstated into the Army after initial removal. I suppose that's because he got backlayed. He served actively in the Mexican-American War from 1846 to 1848 and led the Department of New Mexico until the 1850s. He returned to active duty during the Civil War and recruited soldiers in commanding Benton Barracks in St. Louis from 1862 to 1866. Eventually awarded the Brevet Brigade General rank in 1865. And that was when the war was getting over. Holy cow, this guy served in more wars and fighting. I wonder if he was actually out there fighting, but we're going to find that out a little bit. What do you say about this? He was out there in the wilderness. I mean, he was out there doing this stuff in the 1850s. By this time, he was, over 50 years old. And by the 1860s, I mean, he was close to 70. What do you say to this?
I say he was a strong man. That's what I say. And and he must have been a good on a horse for him to be able to do those kinds of things. You know what I mean?
About it. He's your age, and he's in the military yet. I mean, what guy is in the military nowadays at 70?
That's right.
You get to be 60 something, you're out. He's get a new guy in there. And here he is. He's doing the general thing. He's doing all that stuff. He's commanding soldiers. He was running the barracks in 1862 and 66. He was like 70 at that time.
But let's put this into a perspective now. He was in St. Louis, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, yes.
So there was not a lot of major fighting in over the Mississippi.
Yeah,
there were a lot of big skirmishes, but east of the Mississippi is where all the true bloodshed was going on. So yes, there was war on the other side of the Mississippi, but it was nowhere near what it was on the East Coast kind of thing. It was just hundreds of thousands of men killed, and there'd be 100 men killed in a skirmish where they were at versus 1,000 or 10,000. So I'm saying that because that the job was easier for an old man is what I'm trying to say. He was able to do that job because it was not like what was going on on the East.
Yeah, that's true. This is true. Anyway,
but still, he was 68 years old or whatever it was, when he was doing it. So 70. Yep. He was a strong man.
So after the war, he retired in 1866 to Fort Smith, Arkansas. And in 1871, now you're going to laugh at this one. In 1871, he married Susan Ness, nearly 50 years his junior. Now, how old does this make him? He's 75 years old, and he marries this woman who's 50 years younger than him. I mean, this guy must have energy. I mean, think about it. Your age right now, would you get married to a 25-year-old chick?
It depends.
But I'm serious.
It depends. I've been single a long time. It depends.
I mean,
when love comes around, I've known some other folks and over the years, and it really wasn't anything for a young woman to marry an older man. Because back in those days, because that was all about security. So yeah, he might have been 70 something years old, but he was secure. He probably had a house. He probably had, some money saved somewhere.
He was 75 in 1871 with 4 years. At 75 years old, he got married, and it does. I imagine that might be his first time getting married.
More power to him.
I'm just like, people talk about things nowadays when an old guy gets married to a young chick, but man, he must have had energy enough to keep up with her a little bit anyway.
And she must have saw something in him, to marry him, Yeah. There must have been some kind of deal, but go ahead.
But he did have 7 good years with her, and then he died in 1878 at the age of 82. So what did this guy do that made him so famous besides the military work? Well, he was the first to guide the wagons over the South Pass, providing the Rocky Mountain route. He pioneered exploration in the Great Basin, the Snake River region, and even in early California. His team paved the way for the gold rush and the Oregon traffic. He was a skilled map maker. And of course, we were talking about making the maps and being a surveyor. Let's see, he was a map maker. And of course, that bridged the gap for the fur traders' insight. So he's taking information, and then military surveying. So he had military surveyors. He was a map maker, and he had the fur traders tell him where to go and stuff. So he's putting all this information together in his map. He left a legacy as a soldier and explorer whose practical work shaped the Western migration and the symbol immortalized in Irving's version, influencing generations of Americans. So, some of that is, like I said, is him being immortalized in writing them dime novels or something. You know what I'm saying? So he became like a superhero.
Let me say something else here too. He took a bunch of men on a expedition, and so all of these things that he's accredited for, and I'm not trying to knock him, don't get me wrong, but at his age, he wasn't like some of the other folks that we've talked about, where they were doing it by themselves.
Yeah.
He had a group of men that helped him to do the pioneering. So at the end of the day, these guys could, set up camp and have supper ready, and which gave him time to work on maps and things. But to the point, he had help with it because of the expedition. So it wasn't as tough on him as it was some of the other folks that we've talked about over the last few weeks. So
that's right.
It just made it easier for him to do a good job. You know what I mean?
That's right.
No. And he must have been a decent commander. For the men to follow him out there, and so he must have been a decent commander to be, what I think he was in for 31 years.
Yep. Yeah, amazing. And the stamina and being he could have retired, back when he was like 60 years old and just said, I'm done, I'm going away. I'm going to find me a little woman and settle down and have a house or something. Nope. He kept fighting, finished out the Civil War. And, when he should have been just watching the Civil War instead of fighting in it or commanding it or something.
Well, that's sort of what happened, out there in Missouri and out that far west. There were more skirmishes, like I said, than there were, huge battles. So that just means that he was able to survive easier than them other folks,
Oh yeah, no, and I agree, but still the wear and tear on you at that age.
Oh yeah,
traveling and moving around and getting on your horse. And, all of these things.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
riding on your horse. I'm not a horse rider, but the times that I've been on a horse, I'm like, uh, go on a somebody said, come on, let's go riding for an hour or so. And by that time I get back and I'm like, that's enough for the day. I can't imagine, being on a horse all day long, every day, just get up in the morning and let's ride. So they got that,
Right.
he's got my vote. And so
Yeah, I know.
he was in his expeditions. So he made a trail across the salt flats. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he mapped that all that stuff out. So, you know, like I said, that's where he was, he was doing all of this stuff. He was out there mapping that pass and all of that stuff just takes uh time to do. You know what I'm talking about? It
Oh
just
yeah,
doesn't happen.
but I was trying to get at that he surveyed out there around the salt flats, thus they named it after him.
Yep.
That's where I was
No.
headed.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And for folks who don't know about the salt flats, um, it's salt and it's flat for I mean, it's unbelievable. So over the many years, um, they have, I don't know, I think they might still use the salt flats for this, but
Well,
for
I'm sure they use it.
testing cars, and
Yep.
they come up with experimental cars, for the land speed record, for example, and where they put jet engines on the car. And I don't know that, they get a car to go 500 miles an hour on the ground. That's a big deal. And so the salt flats, named after Mr. Bonneville, but they found out in the automotive that it was so flat that, and so long, that they could get in a car and push the pedal to the metal and go as fast as they possibly could without running into anything. And then when they
Yep.
found out how flat it was, that they could actually put rocket cars on the salt flats. And so, I mean, even there, that got that there's a movie about it. But a crazy guy that had an Indian, a motorcycle Indian, and he souped it up and everything, and he was out on the salt flats, trying to break a land record for motorcycles. I mean, it's just, the salt flats are very um, famous in that respect. And so if you haven't heard anything about that, well then it's just a big salt area in the middle that's a desert kind of thing. So, but yeah, it's very famous.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm frozen on the screen here. I don't know why. Everything's frozen. Everything I got is frozen up, and I have no idea why. Huh. Well, go figure. It won't let me click nothing. Well, keep talking. Keep going. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can
Well,
still hear you.
oh, I don't know why, but I can't. I got the thing, but I got no cursor. No, no. It won't let me do nothing.
Wow.
Everything on the screen is frozen, frozen, frozen. I don't know why. Hmm. I don't know. I might have to bug out and come back.
Do an
Oh,
Alt Control Delete, huh?
yeah. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I gotta get out. Everything is just frozen. Okay, I'm
Okay.
gonna try that. You hold the screen. I'll be back. Alt
All
delete.
right.
Alt control delete. Alt control. It ain't doing nothing. Can't get out and I can't get in. How about that? Okay, let's try this.
Hit your power button. I know my computer was slow tonight and sluggish, and it had to update itself in Chrome. Every time I turn around, Chrome's in an update. I remember back in the day of Windows 3.0 when they told us back then that someday there would be a day to where the computer programs would be so good that they would not have to provide updates, except updates if you got a new piece of hardware or you installed a new piece of software and you had to update to make sure you had the correct drivers or something. But now it's almost once a week, you know, Chrome's got another update for their browser. I mean, what the dickens is going on that they have to have an update once a week? But I digress. So going back to Mr. Bonneville, I didn't want folks to think that by my saying, you know, that he had an entourage of men with him and a bunch of supplies that he was by in any way, you know, not a pioneer like the other guys, you know, the trappers. But and the fact that, you know, he was in his 50s and 60s when he was out there doing this stuff is still amazing, you know. Get somebody that's 50 or 60 to go out and try to do that stuff now, you know. Um, and the fact that it seems like he had never married and he didn't have any kind of family, and that he devoted his life to the military. He was a military man. He served over 30 years, and but then when he got out and in his 70s, he married a 20-something-year-old woman, and you know, and stayed with her until he passed away, you know, about 10 years later. But so he waited. It doesn't say whether or not they had any children, but he felt that his duty was to the United States, because as being a part of the infantry cavalry, when he went to West Point, he learned how to be an artillery man, so he knew how to fire cannons. But it also, in order to fire a cannon, you gotta know about trajectories, and you know, how far up do you pull the nose of that cannon, or do you drop it down? And so um, a good cannoneer
I'm back.
could look across the field and could judge what the angle of the cannon should be and how much powder to put in it and all that kind of. So he was able to do all this stuff in his head. So folks that can do that, they're pretty intelligent to be able to figure stuff like that out. Just looking across the field and going, okay, guys, that's about a 17-degree angle, and make sure you load it good, and blah 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 blah, and boom, off they go. So, but anyway, so he was famous and infamous too, probably among his men. Can I still hear you?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, 5 by 5.
Kind of curious, huh? Sometimes the computers do that kind of stuff. No idea why.
It
But
just
that
does it.
happens.
And it happens to everybody. It ain't just you and me. It happens to everybody.
Yeah, it's just running. But it just happened to you here a little before we got on the show. So did that work or not? Nope. Shoot darn. Anyway, I guess that one didn't work. Okay. Well, everything is moving really slow. We're gonna finish up on Bonneville here. I got the highlights of his life, and then skim through his biography and make some details of some of those things that we were talking about. And I just can't believe that happened. Oh, I was downloading something, and then it just went to crap. And it didn't download, so I got nothing. Maybe that's why I went to sorry, everybody. Thank you for staying with us, everybody. Sorry the technical difficulties. Thanks all of you for being here tonight and putting up with us. You know how it goes. Okay, let's see. Get back to Bonneville here. Let's see here. Here we go. So anyway, let's talk about his 1832 trip. He went out with the Astor's American Fur Company. This is when he resigned he didn't resign. He just took a leave of absence for a while. This is kind of where he gets into, he was backed by the financial support of John Jacob Astor, who, with the American Fur Company, who was one of the richest people in the world at that time, just about. He took, remember he was saying he took 110 men? It says he took 110 men and 20 wagons. They left from Missouri. And his goal was to survey uncharted lands, to challenge the fur industry monopoly with the Hudson Bay Company. So, it's the two big companies fighting it out. Along the way, Bonneville built Fort Bonneville, sarcastically named Fort Nonsense. Them guys were kind of creative back then. And before abandoning it due to the onset of winter and logistic challenges. Bonneville's expeditions took him through the Snake River Valley, the Salmon River country, and into the heart of Idaho and eastern Oregon. He interacted with numerous Native American tribes, including the Shoshone and the Nez Perce. Now, in the 1830s, that was he was probably one of the first groups of guys coming in there, because remember Lewis and Clark met the Nez Perce, and they were some of the first, and that was in 1805. So 25 years later, here comes this guy. 25 or 30 years later, I should say. And they formed a peaceful and mutual beneficial relationship. So he knew how to interact with those natives, and instead of killing them all off, should say. One of his most lasting contributions came through his subordinate, Lieutenant Joseph Walker, whom Bonneville tasked with finding a route to California. And Walker's successful journey through what would become known as the Walker Pass laid the foundation for the California Trail, which was in the westward migration during the gold rush. Despite the many setbacks, including being denied trade access by the Hudson Bay Company and struggling through severe winters, anywhere in the Rocky Mountains is a severe winter, Bonneville gathered immense geographical and cultural knowledge. He returned to Missouri in 1835 and submitted his findings to the U.S. government. Now remember, he's collecting data on the natives that nobody else had, which is kind of cool. Well, though he had technically overstayed his military leave and was dropped from active duty, Bonneville's contributions were recognized and he was later reinstated. His exploits were immortalized by writer Washington Irving, which we talked about, in The Adventures of Captain Bonneville. Wow. So there you go. That's, and that's Bonneville's legacy is one of exploration, diplomacy, and daring. His journeys through the American West opened critical paths for settlers, challenging foreign trade monopolies, and built cultural bridges with native tribes. His maps and notes significantly enriched American understanding of the Rocky Mountains, the Great Basin, and the Pacific Northwest. Captain Bonneville didn't just explore the frontier, he helped define it, leaving behind a trail of courage, curiosity, and enduring impact. If it wasn't for him, people wouldn't have been able to go north or to California, to Oregon, any of those places. You know what I'm saying?
It would have been a lot harder.
Oh, yeah. I mean, these people had mapped out some of the trails and the passes. Remember, Beckworth found one of the passes in the Sierra Nevadas. But still, these guys were, even though you were a trapper and you're out there and you may have realized that you found a pass, unless you're a map maker or a surveyor, how are you going to convey that information to the next guy and the next guy? You can put up some rocks, along the way, but that's not telling the whole world, getting your message out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They, for the fur traders that found things like that, they had to keep it in their head until they got back. And then sitting around the fire and having a drink, they'd go, when I was out there, I came to this spot, and where were you on this map? Well, we was right about in here. But man, there was a big, there was a creek that run through there, and there was a mud hole, and so they're able to describe other stuff. And when you get to this trailhead here, you go north for about 5 miles, and then you go west for so they could describe how they got to the pass. So then when they got back, they could jot it down and add it to a map. And the next thing you know, the map makers then, when he turned it over to the United States government, then they took that map with his notes and started updating all the other maps.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's amazing. See, Anyway.
And the accuracy with which they could write that stuff down too and remember it, so that was a biggie too. He could remember, well, there's the past. There was a big rock slide on one side and a sharp cliff, and you stayed to the left of it, or I mean, just whatever it was. So, but they could remember the trail. They had it in their heads.
They did. They
were some smart dudes.
They did. Well, Bonneville was smart, and he was a map maker, and then of course he was a writer too, and he had journals, and he turned all these journals over to Washington Irving, and then he put them together and published them in The Adventures of Captain Bonneville, which I think that embellished him into this frontier legend, that he became afterwards. I mean, he was a living legend. And from if Irving's printing this thing in 1837, so like for 25 or 30 years, he's going to be a living legend. People are going to say, "Oh my God, you're Captain Bonneville. Oh my gosh, I read your book. You did all these things. You found the past. You did all these. Holy cow!" You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine it?
It made him famous. I mean,
it was hard to be famous back then. It was hard to be famous back then because it took a long time for word to get out, and it wasn't like people took like today. You hear some famous person, and and this and that. They talk about this, and the news spreads so fast from morning to evening. Everybody knows what's going on. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, it is my hour's up, and we got a story for tonight, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
All righty. Let's see if I
Let
can
me shift gears.
Yes, we're going to shift gears. And I had all this stuff up, but now I'm going to re-put it up because I had it up. Oh, yeah.
And I have to put it back up. And
there we go.
Yep, our story for tonight is Ermine and the Hunter. Yep.
Okay, do I got the right one?
Well, wait, let me come back around. Yes, that's the right one.
Okay, I'll let you do your thing. You're all pulled up and ready to go.
Well, for all of our fans out there, you know, that want to read the story along with me, I've got the story pulled up myself so I can make it bigger because my new eyes are still trying to get adjusted, so I have to be able to zoom the text in a little bit. But anyway, our story for tonight is Urban and the Hunter. And I'm still reading from the book Glooscap's Country and Other Indian Tales by Cyrus McMillan, 1922. And our story begins. Armin and the Hunter. Far away in the Canadian North Country, an old man lived with his wife and children. They lived far from other people, but they were never lonely, for they had much work to do. The old man was a great hunter, and in summer he and his wife and children lived on the fish and game he captured in the winter. In the springtime, he gathered sap from the maple trees, from which he made maple syrup and maple sugar, with which to sweeten their food. One day in summer, he found 3 small bears eating his stock of sugar. When he came upon them, his sugar was all gone, and he was very cross. With a stout club, he killed the 3 little bears and skinned them and dried their meat. But his wife said, "No good can come of it. You should not have killed the 3 little bears, for they were too young for slaughter." The next day, the old bear came along, looking for his lost children. When he saw their skins hanging up to dry, he knew that they had been killed by the hunter. He was very sad and angry, and he called to the hunter, "You have killed my little motherless cubs, and in return for that wickedness, some night when you are off your guard, I will kill your children, and then I will kill you and your wife, and I will devour all your food." The old man shot at him with his arrows, but the arrows did not harm him, for he was Brown Bear of the stony heart, and he could not be killed by man. For many nights and days, the old man tried to trap him, but he met with no success. And each day he saw his store of food growing smaller. For Bear of the Stony Heart stole it always in the night. And he thought, we shall all surely starve before the winter comes and game is plentiful again. One day in despair, he resolved to look about him for someone who would tell him how to kill the bear. He went to the bank of the river and sat there in thought and smoked long at his pipe. And he called to the god of the river and said, "O river god, help me to drown Bear when he comes to fish." And the river came from the limestone country, far back among the rocks, and it was flowing rapidly to the sea. And the river god said, "My water cannot tarry. There are millions of oysters down on the ocean shore, waiting for shells, and I am hurrying down there with the lime to make them." And he rushed quickly past. Then the old man called to the spirit of the wind, and he said, "O spirit of the wind, stay here with me tonight and help me to kill Bear of the Stony Heart. You can knock down great trees upon his back and crush him to the earth." But the wind spirit said, "I cannot linger. Many ships with rich cargoes lie silent on the ocean, waiting to sail, and I must hurry along with the force to drive them." And like the river god, he hastened on his way. Then the old man called to Storm Cloud, which was just then passing over his head, and he said, "O spirit of the storm cloud, stay here with me tonight and help me to kill Bear of the Stony Heart, for he seeks to destroy my children. You can send lightning and thunder to strike him dead." But the storm cloud said, "I cannot loiter on the way. Far from here there are millions of blades of corn and grass dying from thirst in the summer heat. For I see the heat waves rising on the earth, and I am hurrying there with rain to save them." And like the river god and the wind spirit, he hurried along on his business. The poor old man was in great sorrow, for it seemed that no one would help him to rid the land of Bear of the Stony Heart. As he sat wondering what he should do, an old woman came along, and she said, "I am very hungry and tired, for I have come far. Will you give me food and let me rest here for a while?" And he said, "We have very little food, for Bear of the Stony Heart steals it from us nightly. But you may share with us what little we have." So he went away and brought back to her a good fat meal. While she was eating her dinner, he told her of his troubles with Bear. And he said that no one would help him to get rid of the pest, and that Bear could not be killed by man. And the old woman said, "There is a little animal who can kill Bear of the Stony Heart. He alone can save you. You have done well to me." Here is a wand which I will give you. Go to sleep here soon on the bank of the river. Wave this wand before you sleep and say what I shall teach you. And when you awake, call to you the first animal you see when you open your eyes. He will be the animal of which I speak, and he will rid you of the bear. She taught him a little rhyme and gave him a wand, which she took from the blanket on her arm. Then she hobbled away, and the old man knew that she was the weird woman of the fairy blue mountain, of whom he had often heard. He marveled greatly, but he resolved to do as she told him. After the old woman had gone, the man waved the little wand 3 times and cried, "Animal, animal, come from your lair. Help me to slaughter the old brown bear. Make with my magic a little white dart to pierce in the center of old bear's stony heart." He repeated the rhyme 3 times, and then he felt himself getting drowsy, and sleep soon came upon him. He slept but a short time when the heat woke him up, for the hot sun beat down upon him. He rubbed his eyes and looked about him. Watching him from behind a tree was a little animal with a shaggy brown coat. The old man thought to himself, "Surely the weird woman of the blue mountains has played a trick on me, that a scraggy little animal with a dirty coat cannot kill the bear." But he resolved to test her word. He repeated his rhyme again, and the little animal came quickly towards him. "Who are you?" said the man. "I am Ermine," said the little animal. "Are you the animal of which the fairy woman of the blue hills has told me?" asked the man. "I am indeed the same," said Ermine. "I have been sent to you to kill the bear, and here I have the little darts made powerful because of your magic wand." He pointed to his mouth and showed the old man his sharp white teeth. "So now to your task," said the old man in high spirits. "Oh, not so fast," said Ermine. "You must first pay me for my work." What can I do for you?" asked the man. "I am ashamed of my dirty brown coat, which I have worn for a long time," said the animal. "You have great magic from the wand you received from the fairy woman of the blue hills. I want a sleek and shining white coat that I can wear always, for I want to be clean." The old man waved his wand again and wished for what the animal had asked him, and at once the shaggy brown coat of Ermine was replaced by a sleek and shining white coat as spotless as the new snow in winter. Then the animal said, "I have one more condition to impose on you. You must promise never to kill a bear's cubs when they are still following their mother in the summertime. You must give them a chance to grow strong so that they may be able to fight for their own lives. And the man promised, placing his hand upon the wand to bind his oath. Then, when he looked again, the wand had vanished from his hand. It had gone back through the air to the fairy woman of the Blue Hills. Then Ermine set out on his search for Bear. The afternoon was very hot and the forest was still, and not a leaf or a blade of grass was stirring, and there was not a ripple on the stream. The whole world was drowsy in the dry summer heat. But Ermine did not feel the heat. He was in such high spirits because of his new white coat. Soon he came upon Bear, stretched out at full length on the bank of the river, taking his afternoon nap, as was his custom after his fat midday meal. He was lying on his back, and his mouth was wide open, and he was snoring loudly like a waterfall. "This is your last sleep," said Ermine, creeping softly to his side, "for you are a dangerous thief. You shall snore no more." And with a bound, he jumped down Bear's throat, and in an instant had pierced with his teeth his strong, stony heart, which the arrows of the Indians could never reach. Then, as quickly as he had entered the bear's mouth, Ermine jumped out again and ran from the place. Bear snored no more. He was quite dead, and the land was rid of his thefts and terrors. Then Ermine went back to the old man and told him that the deed was done. And that night was a great feast night in the old man's home. And since that time, Ermine in the North Country has worn a sleek white coat as spotless as the new snow in winter. And to this day, the hunters in the far north will not kill, if they can avoid it, the young bear cubs while they are still following their mothers through the forest. They give them a chance to grow up and grow strong so that they may be able to fight for their own lives, as the fairy woman of the Blue Hills had asked. The end. So he went to a lot of trouble, but he should not have killed them bear cubs. But there are people who have, a fox or something. And I know about this because fox got in my hen house and killed quite a few chickens, and all you can do is be mad. But, then when I stopped and had a chance to cool down and think about it, them foxes need to eat too. And so, as much as I lost chickens, them foxes had to eat. And I also found out that the foxes had 2 youngins that they were feeding. So I could be mad all I wanted to, but at the end of it, I was like, well, at least it fed the foxes, I know there are farmers and folks that trap foxes and kill them. But I've seen them over the years, and they hadn't messed with any of my chickens until the last time they killed them all. I haven't had a chicken since. But, you know, so as a farmer protecting your stuff, well, the first thing you want to do is pick up something and go beat them to death. And he did. Killed them, skinned them, and you know, so that made Papa Bear really mad. So I could see why.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's the way it goes. I know when something gets my chickens, I get awful mad. Huh. Wonder what that is. Okay. We got some good cards tonight.
Yeah, that's what I'm working towards right now.
Okay, everybody, get your guesses in for tonight. What it's going to be. I'm gonna choose bear right off the bat. Since we were talking about bears, I'm gonna go with bear. I'm gonna go with weasel, and I'm gonna go with butterfly again. And since we've been doing a lot of birds, I'm gonna go with eagle again.
Oh, eagle again, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with eagle. Even though we had eagle the other day, I am what is it, 2-3 weeks in a row? I'm thinking I'm gonna go with eagle again. I feel eagle. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, and eagle has the upside down eagle has been a good message, you know. So and the fact that it showed up over these last few weeks is like, pay attention. So for all you folks out there who've been, you know, watching the card readings, you know, pay attention to eagle.
That's right. Eagle, weasel,
right,
bear.
Let's see. First card up tonight is hummingbird.
Oh, I got hummingbird right. Remember I said hummingbird.
Yeah, but
hummingbird again.
Yeah, again, hummingbird I think was in the cards last time.
Yeah, I think in a couple of weeks or something. But we'll see what happens.
Hummingbird is joy.
Joy, joy, joy. Joy to the world.
So the next one up, as far as birds are concerned, is owl upside down.
A lot of birds lately. Ooh, excuse me.
Now, y'all would think that, you know, that I'm looking at these cards, but I'm not. The next card up is number 33, Weasel.
Weasel, I picked Weasel.
I'm not kidding. I looked at it and went, you got to, what? So
I did pretty good. We had Weasel in the in the story, so bear and Weasel. Why not? I don't have much for creation. I just use the circumstances at hand.
Well, now here's one we haven't had in a while, and
okay.
You know, normally good. Ant upside down.
Ooh. Ant.
And I think ant is patience or something like that.
Teamwork and patience and yeah. I haven't had elk or deer for a while. Deer, antelope. Antelope. Sorry. Well, look at that. Somebody picked some good stuff today.
So,
Right on.
and
Thank you all for joining us.
the last one I pulled is rabbit, right side up.
Rabbit. I was thinking a rabbit. I
And
should have said
rabbit is fear. And
rabbit is fear. Yes, that's for sure.
the next one is badger, upside down.
Hmm. Now we haven't had badger in a long time. Long time.
Nope, we haven't. Badger medicine is herbs and roots and things that, that stick into the badger's hole. Rabbit is about fear. And so, for folks to call fear to them. So I'm looking
Yep.
at these cards and going backwards and going, you know, looks like rabbit's trying to warn us of being afraid of something. And badger, I think, is like, get her done. Let me get the book out and I'll be with you in a second. So hummingbird is joy and it's right side up. So, to pick that card first off kind of sets up what the mood of this is, right?
Yep.
It should. So hummingbird and joy. So we're going to start with that joy, 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 joy down in my heart. We're going to start there, which is not a bad place to begin. So hang on just a second. It's number 44. Excuse me. Which is the last animal in the book. So, hummingbird is joy and is associated with the ghost shirt religion. The song of hummingbird awakens the medicine flowers. Hummer sings a vibration of pure joy. Flowers love hummingbird because its nectar sucking brings about the reproduction of all the other families and flowers. So plants flower and live because of hummingbird. Hummingbird can fly in any direction. Because of their magical qualities in flying, hummingbird feathers are very sacred. If hummingbird is your personal medicine, you love life and its joys. Your presence brings joy to others. Your presence brings joy to others. So, what first card up? When if we want to bring joy to others, then we need to think about it. If we're going to go visit a friend, we don't want to walk in there and go, "Man, it's a shitty day outside." No, you want to bring joy. So, joy takes a little bit of pre-planning, if you will. If you wake up grumpy, you got to shake it off and smile and see the day for the joy in the day. Hummingbird holds the bow of beauty, which is delicately inlaid with gold and silver flowers. If hummingbird has flown into your cards, get ready to laugh magically and enjoy creator's many gifts. Now, as many of you know, I'm always saying, accept and receive, from the creator. Drop your judgmental attitude and relax. Relax, y'all. Hummingbird will no doubt give you a flash of the spirit, darting here and there and everywhere. Follow Sister Hummingbird, and you will soon be filled with paroxysms of joy and experience a renewal of the magic of living. A renewal in the magic of living. Okie dokie. So, and so the card's right side up. Now, the next card in is Owl Upside Down, number 21 in the book. Owl is deception. So we got joy, 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 but we got owl that is wary of deception. Owl medicine is symbolically associated with clairvoyance. Owl hunts prey at night, but owl also um, relies on its hearing, not just its eyesight, but night. Owl is oftentimes the medicine of sorcerers and witches. That's how powerful the medicine of owl is. Is it any wonder that in many cultures, owl is a symbol for wisdom? This is because owl can see that which others cannot, which is the essence of true wisdom. When others are deceived, owl sees and knows what is there. Now, owl is upside down, but it's still about deception. If you have owl upside down, we have been greatly deceived by either ourselves or another. Perhaps some bad juju has been thrown our way. Or maybe you are using bad juju. And if you are, don't. The message is to befriend the darkness inside yourself. Make sure that you are praying and asking the Great Spirit for guidance. So you or somebody has deceived you. So Hummingbird is saying there's a lot of joy, and the owl is like, be careful with deception. And maybe the deception hasn't happened yet, so be careful. So now Weasel is number 33. I can't believe that, the characters in the story have come out in the cards. They did that last week. And Weasel is all about stealth. Ooh. So Weasel has an incredible amount of energy and ingenuity, and it is a difficult power totem to have. The chiefs sent Weasel to the enemy, to their camps, to smoke out their truth and power. Weasel never failed to give them an accurate account of what they found in other camps. Weasel fur changes color during the seasons, and Silent Weasel has many lessons to teach you. Weasel could confound Great Spirit, pick Great Spirit's pockets, and then leave Great Spirit contemplating the divine navel. Okay? So, Weasel is all about stealth. And look to Weasel power to tell you the hidden reasons behind anything. Ooh, so here's the deception from Owl that's like, need to look out. And then here's Weasel card showing up that says, ask Weasel for any of the many hidden reasons. So if you don't know what's bothering you, or somebody might be doing something, so the weasel card is to ask him, because the stealth is when they sent Weasel out to the other camps to find out what was up. So that's interesting. So there's an upside down owl, but the stealth card with Weasel is there as medicine to fix it. That's cool. So um, ask Weasel, look to Weasel for the power to tell you the hidden reasons behind anything. Some people are put off by weasel medicine, but there are no bad medicines. We all have power and abilities, but there are no bad medicines. Some are just better than others, but there are no bad medicines. Observe who or what needs attention or a solution, and order your assistance in your own quiet or discreet way. Talking to Weasel. The next one up is Ant, upside down, and it is number 32. That's interesting. These cards are all. Weasel was 33 and Ant's 32 in the book. So, yeah, I was right earlier. Ant is about patience. So, Ant can carry a leaf for 100 miles if you let him to get back to the ant hill. So, every ant in the ant hill is a part of the ant group mind. It's not a hive mind, it's a group mind. They all work together to support the queen. Ant people are active, community minded, and who see the greater good and future needs of their own. So, what it entails is patience has its rewards for the ant. Ant people have a knowing about the sweet victory at the end of the line. There is never a concern about going without if there are, or if they're late for the opening of a sale. If what they want is sold out, they are sure that something of equal or better value will be available. And I can attest to that. So, Ant is about patience, but it's upside down. So, watch out. Here comes the sting. If you are in a hurry, you may fall prey to those who are not working for the good of the whole. So there's Weasel saying he's going to go out and look to find out what's wrong. Owl saying, pay attention. So the upside down ant is like, be careful. Um, those individuals who make greed a way of life prey on the fear and urgency of those who have forgotten the natural and tribal law. In the contrary position, also teaches you to trust natural law. So the stealth is there with the weasel, and Ant is saying be careful and pay attention to natural law. I don't know what that is or what might be coming up, but apparently we got to make sure that we're not being deceived. Now, here's another card, and it's number 30. So we've had 33, 32, and now 30. And then the next one after that is number 29. That's just weird. They're all in the middle of the book. Now, Hummingbird is the last one in the book. So that's just interesting. I shuffle the cards and pull them out, having nothing to do with the book. But And as we all know, Rabbit is about fear. And Rabbit had a friend who was a witch. And Rabbit was hungry, and the witch turned a rock into a turnip and gave it to Rabbit to eat. Then Rabbit was thirsty, and uh, his friend uh, tapped another rock, and water came out, and he gave it to Rabbit to drink. Well, after that, Rabbit hadn't been around the witch at all. And so when the witch saw him one day, said, "What's up, Rabbit?" Rabbit said, "I'm afraid of you." And the witch was like, "What? We were friends for years and all this time, and now you're afraid of me? Well, from now on, I curse you and all of your kin, and you will always be afraid. You will go out in the field and look up at the sky and cry, 'Eagle, here I am, eat me.'" And so since that time, um, now Rabbit is called the fear caller. He goes out and shouts, "Eagle, I am so afraid of you." And if Eagle doesn't hear him, he calls out louder, "Eagle, stay away from me." Eagle, now hearing the rabbit, comes and eats him. As the story shows, rabbit medicine people are so afraid of tragedy, of illness, of disaster, and being taken that they call those very fears to them to teach them lessons. So there's a deceitful thing, and that Weasel is to help ferret out. Ant saying, "Make sure that you're patient, don't flub this up." And Rabbit is in here saying, if you're calling fear to you, to yourself, it's to teach you a lesson. I'd rather not fear teach me a lesson. That's a boo. Here is the lesson. If you've pulled Rabbit, stop talking about horrible things happening and get rid of "what if" in your vocabulary. "Well, I don't know if I could do this. What if, the sky, rains, or what if," you got to get out of that. So Rabbit is like, Ant's saying, "Be patient," and Rabbit's telling you, "Get rid of that what if." So it must mean that something in the future you shouldn't be afraid of, especially if you pay attention. Now, the next card up is down, and it's on the last page before Rabbit. It's number 29 in the book, and it is Badger. And Badger is about aggressiveness. And Badger is vicious and attacks with powerful aggression. Badger is quick to anger and quicker to pounce. The power of Badger's medicine is aggressiveness. So, in other words, aggressive healing, aggressive whatever, that aggressive in that sense, and the willingness to fight for what is right. So Badger will stand up, for family, and stand up, well, not just family, but for anything that, is the correct cause. If Badger is a part of your medicine, you are quick to express your feelings, and you do not care what the consequences are. So that's something you need to be careful of. But the Badger in the contrary position. So Badger upside down and fuming. This could mean that you are being chewed out by someone else. Now, see, in the earlier part of the cards, it's like somebody's going to deceive you, possibly. So now you might be being chewed out by this person or by someone else, or that you have expressed your anger in an unhealthy way. Now, that's what I would normally do back in the day. is be pissed off and have a screaming hissy fit. So if you are angry at someone, then you need to look inside yourself to find out why you got angry. Why are you mad at this other person? You know, Badger in the contrary position can issue in a time of reflection on what you may feel helpless about. So there's Rabbit saying something about fearing stuff. You're calling things to you. And here's Badger saying um, that it might be time for reflection on what might be making you feel helpless or afraid of. And so that internal conversation is always good, but man, you got to be honest about it. You got to be honest and brutally honest with yourself. In the reverse, Badger teaches you the pitfalls of shyness and insecurity, as well of as of misused or vicious aggression. Go to your feelings. Maybe you just need to let off some steam. That might be a good thing. And Rabbit is making you afraid of something. And as you get afraid, you start getting tense. And so Badger upside down, let off some steam. Go do something that's, outwardly, move around a lot on the outside. Don't just say, well, we took a ride in the country. No, that's not enough. You got to take a ride in the country and get out, go for a walk, you know, tootle around, move your body some, and then get back in the car and come home. But you got to get that anger out, or fear, okay? Because Owl is saying, be careful of deceit. So Badger Reverse may also be putting you on notice to beware of those areas of your life that need the input of someone else's aggressive creativity to spark your own. In other words, if you're working by yourself and you kind of sort of hit a brick wall, or you may be plodding along but not as good as you should, then maybe time to pull in a partner. It doesn't have to be full time, but you might need to pull in somebody else and their point of view, their eyesight, their whatever it is, and pull them in and say, "Hey, man, help me work this out. You know, do you like this color red on this one? Oh, that God, that red looks horrible." Talk to somebody, invite them in, and you know, and allow you to put you on notice to be aware of areas in your life that need inputs from somebody else. Ooh, and there's my froggy friend. And those are the cards for tonight. Let me go back over them. Hummingbird is starting it out with joy. And so I think that's a good thing. But Owl is saying be careful of being deceived. And if you're worried about being deceived, then ask for weasel medicine to help ferret out what that might be. Um, be patient, because Ant's saying, you got to be patient and keep an eye on what's going on, and be patient because Rabbit is trying to stand out in the field and call fear to it itself, and Badger, is making sure that you get that anger out, and that Badger speaks of a need for more aggressive action in your life. So get up and move. So, with that said, those are the cards for tonight. I think they're positive. You know, don't let Rabbit scare you to death.
Yep, those were pretty good cards.
Yep. I mean, it's a nice warning, but it started out with hummingbird. So be joyful, you
That's
know,
right.
be
That's
joyful.
right. Joyful and fear and patience. Ah, yes, have patience. Don't fear everything. Be patient. So anyway, good
And be
cards tonight. Good
and
story.
be aggressive, as Badger says, not in a bad way, but get off your doofus and go do something, or you know, if if you if you are strong with yourself, and if you're strong in yourself, then you'll have less fear, and you'll have the strength of Badger. So, just saying, get out, exercise, get
That's
Badger
right.
out of your system.
Yep.
So, how'd we
So
do?
we did real good. We did real good. We got 1 hour and 41 minutes. We're way ahead of time. We're good. We're making our presence known. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the cards. Some people picked some good stuff. Some people missed. Remember, there is no crazy things like you know, um, baboon or something. You got to pick normal animals,
Yeah,
bad things like that, elk, deer, horse. Yeah, don't pick something like aardvark or giraffe or elephant. No African animals. No extinct animals either. Anyway, but they send a
yeah,
good
no
message.
dinosaurs. Yeah,
No
no,
dinosaurs.
no
Boy,
pterodactyls.
that's right. Don't forget to join me Saturday for a great show coming up. Oh boy, do we got a good one for you. And are you going to have a show tonight?
We'll see how this cell phone works. It's always up to the
All
cell
right.
phone. So,
Always up to the cell phone. Okay. Well, there you go, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed that. And we'll be back next week for another great adventure. You got any plans for the week? Anything else going on?
no, just summertime, trying to, stay out of the heat, which is not as bad as I have a complaint I want to talk about for a minute.
Uh-oh.
And growing up, we never had a what it feels like temperature. We went out and looked on the thermometer to find out what the real temperature was.
Yep.
And if it was 95 outside, it feels like, oh, it's 110. And no, it was 95. So these days, over the last 10 years, they have switched it out, and they are trying to convince you that the feels like temperature is the real temperature. It's bogus. Look at a thermometer. Oh, it's so hot this year. Everybody's talking. I went
Yeah.
out, and the hottest day so far this year here at my house has been 95 degrees. And it was for one day. And so everything else has been like 90, 92. It's been a very pleasant summer up to now. There's been no
Yep.
extreme heat. The humidity sucks, but I live in South Georgia. The humidity always sucks. So, but this feels like temperature. They are convincing people that this is the hottest it's ever been. It's a lie. It's a lie. It was 110 the other day. No, it
Mhm.
wasn't. It was 99, but it felt like 110. How do you know what 110 feels like? It hasn't been 110. It would break the thermometers around here. They don't go that high. So, out west, I could see it. But please, my dear friends, get these people to go back to telling the real temperature, not what it feels like, because the humidity changes. If the humidity goes down and there's a nice breeze, 95 don't feel that bad.
Right.
But it could be 89 degrees and a heavy humidity, and you're going to sweat just trying to get to your car. It's so dreadful. But it's not 110 outside. No, it's 89 with a lot of humidity. So
That's right.
please don't let these weather people fool you. And other people are going, it was 110 the other day. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Please. And tell them, no, it wasn't. It felt like it's 110, but the real temperature. So go with the real temperature, my friends. I'll get off
Hmm.
my soapbox now. And I will
No,
ask you all to, to continue to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. That's my prayer to you all. And look at a thermometer for the temperature.
I know they got us all buffaloed. Hey, it feels like 110 out. Oh my! And then your brain gets thinking, and they tell you that enough. Eventually, you just, oh my gosh, what did people do back in the day when they didn't have air conditioning? They all just die in the summer? People just dropping over like flies. Oh, it's too hot. No, they they made do. They built their houses for the wind to blow through them, so that the windows on the whatever side, the west side where the wind comes from, would blow through the house and make a nice breeze. They would put a fan in the basement and blow up the cold air, blow the hot air out of the roof, and cool the house that way, but not anymore. Nowadays we got oh my gosh, you're gonna die if you don't have air conditioning. But it's all fake. Yeah.
Back in the day, if you were lucky and the house was designed for it, they had attic fans,
Yeah.
and they were great big fans. They were like 3 foot wide fans, big fans, right?
Yep.
And they didn't go real fast, and usually there was only one speed. But
Mm-hmm.
when you turn that puppy on, um, it sucked the air out of the house. I mean, you could just feel it. And within a few minutes, it wouldn't be cold, but it would be much cooler. Because
Yep.
here's the thing, it's folks that don't understand, it's 95 degrees outside. So you're going to pull in hot air from outside to cool you down.
That's right.
That don't
That's,
work.
I
So
know.
they pulled cooler air from under the house, which was cooler. And that's what got into the house to help bring the temperature down. But we didn't have air conditioning when I was growing up in Florida in the
Mm-hmm.
late 50s and through the 60s. Nope.
Yeah.
We got an air conditioner, I think, in like about 68. But when at nighttime, when it was hot, there was one fan in the house that was blowing out. It didn't blow in. Well, actually, there were two fans. There's one on the other end of the house, and it was just a fan, not very big, and
Yep.
pushing air in from one end of the house, and it was 100 feet to the other end of the house, where a fan was in the window that drew the air out. But again, it's 80 degrees outside. You're pulling in 80-degree air,
Yep.
so at 2 in the morning, it's 80 degrees and you're sweating. It was horrible like that growing up. Slept by
Yep.
the window. I'd sleep with my head, and try to feel some air coming in the window. But we survived it. I mean, you know, when you go back to the pioneers, them folks didn't have fans except ones that they could sit with. And that's why them old ladies had them fans all the time, because they didn't have no air conditioner. As long as they had some air blowing on them, they was okay.
Something to make them a little more comfortable. Yeah. No, but
Yep.
that things in back in the day, you got hot, you stopped work, you waited, and then you worked a little bit later in the evening when it was cooler out. You know, you didn't work when it was so hot. That's why they call it a siesta. The Spanish came up with that, the siesta. Let's take a siesta. In the afternoon, it's 110 degrees, so we have a little siesta. We take a nap, we cool down, we have something nice to drink, and then we go back to our shop or back to work, and work in the evening when it's cooler out, right?
Yep.
Hence the smart way to do things. But today we're spoiled. Like I was telling my buddy, we were talking about the cars, and I said, dude, he's like, oh, my air conditioner working, and I says, I gotta get the air conditioner works. I'm so happy. And I says, yeah, nowadays all cars have air conditioners. They don't even design them with the windows that roll down properly to blow the air into the car. Remember the little
That's right.
side windows you have and stuff. So now people don't even roll down their windows. They have the air conditioning on all the time. And when it doesn't work, oh my gosh, you're in a world of heap of trouble. And that's one of the bigger problems, is because we've designed everything to be comfortable. And I agree, but in some ways the technology is great, but in other ways, do you really need to have the air on, all the time? Because you
Right.
can't roll down your window. I don't get it. And then when your air
Right.
doesn't work, oh my gosh, your car is almost undrivable.
Well, and and listening to the news here, this summer, especially up in the Northeast, supposedly, this major heat thing that's moving in, and again, the temperatures have been less than 100 real temperatures. Only in the like 96 for a high temperature for the day. That's not really bad, for the summertime. So, but they're saying the heat wave is going to create such a stress on the grid. Now, uh, things are all about energy, and honestly, energy. So here are the
Yep.
energy people putting negative energy into the grid before it ever happens. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, it's going to be bad this summer. Wait a minute. Just tell people to turn their ACs up,
Yep.
not down, but up. Make sure their ACs are on like 78 degrees, not 72. You want to suffer, put it on 78, because if you don't, you're not going to have anything, you know. So which would you rather do? So,
Yep.
so they're already putting negative energy into the grid by what they say, and then what they say then is promulgated by all the weathermen and all the news people and everything. So, oh my God, the energy grid is going to fail. It's going to be so bad. Don't think that way.
Well,
And
another big thing on this whole deal is that they build these houses nowadays so big. They build big giant houses, and then they're air conditioning the whole darn thing. And years ago, you had a little house. You had 2,000 square feet or less, and your whole family lived in that. And today, oh, geez, you got 5,000 square feet, and that ain't enough. And then now we got to heat it, and we got to air condition it, and we got to light it, and it's like what, So you got less people in a huge big space, and you want that huge big space to be ice cold in the summer, right?
yeah,
And
yep.
you want it to
And
be nice in
there
the
are
winter.
houses around here like that. Back in the day, a 1,200 square foot house was kind of like on the large side. Now that
Yeah.
wasn't counting usually it was a carport, and with the utility shed outside for the dryer and wash machine.
Yep.
Bunch of houses built like that, but the house itself was only right at 1,000 square feet, and people lived in them quite, not hard to heat, not too hard to cool, but now houses are 3 times as big as those ones years ago.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, and I have talked about this on my podcast before. On the way into Moultrie, on the right hand side there, they have this huge 2.5 story house, big, beautiful house, porch around 2 sides, and they
Yep.
had two. Now I saw them move in. That's the reason I know about this. So they had 2 young girls. They built a playhouse out to the side that is like a duplicate of the big house. It's all very
Mm.
nice, about 3 acres of land, way out here in the country. And
Yep.
on a major highway, they have it lit up at night. You'd think it was the Taj Mahal. But the girls have moved out. And so it's only mom and daddy living in that 3,000 square foot house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now they got this huge house and nobody lives in it. So it's like,
Yep.
be careful of what you wish for, because,
Yeah.
ooh, I want a big house in the country. Why? Why?
I know.
Because when you get to be my age, you can't take care of it, and unless you're rich, you can't take care of it. So, but anyway, that's enough of that. Have we used up our 2 hours yet?
Oh, just about. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It just takes a lot more time and energy. I know, like this farm here I'm on, to mow the grass, take care of the fencing, the horses, the animals. There's gonna come a day when I go, I'm done. Moving to town, getting a little bitty house, getting rid of everything, just downsizing because I just can't do it anymore. I just can't
There's so
can't
many
function.
people that when the kids are gone and the kids gone syndrome, um,
Yeah.
mom and daddy, they're looking at each other and the house is real big and everything. And one day it dawns on one or both of them is like, why are we paying for this thing? Why not sell this huge monstrosity and go get us a 1 bedroom? Because here's the thing old people do now. Uh, Mom, Dad, you bought a new house. Yep. It's it's only a 1 bedroom. Yep. Well, couldn't you get a 2 or 3 bedroom? No. Well, why not? Because if we got a 2 bedroom house, then you'd come and want to stay with us.
No, that's true. A
So they
lot of
get a 1 bedroom house or apartment, and then no, well, you can come and sleep on the floor. That's okay, but you ain't gonna like that for long, So
well, and you're right because like now things have gotten tough, and if mom and dad still have the house, the kids come move back in. Uh,
right.
you know, and then mom and dad, well, can you pay the bills? We don't have a job. Then they can become lazy. A lot of times they do. It's like, hey, we're kids again. No, you're adults and living like a kid. Grow up, move out of the house, support yourself. Um, that's all I got to say. Otherwise, I'm going to anger people. I see, a lot of these people, they move out and they're saying they're moving out and they start off at a young age, but that's how it went back in the day. So, anyway,
Yep.
we better wrap this
But
up. We got 1 minute to go.
oh,
One
okay.
minute.
Well, I'm one thing that's coming back to America is manufacturing. And for those dweebs out there who don't know how to do anything, go back to a trade school and learn how to plumb, do electric, do something, because there's going to be plenty of jobs, but you're going to have to know some kind of a trade. So you know, go back to school and learn a trade, because then you'll be able to get a job that'll pay you good money.
I like that message. And with that, everybody, go out and do something nice for your neighbor. It's going to be a great day. And remember, be the frequency you want to receive, everybody. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.